Welcome inside another postgame edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast from Milan Puskar Stadium. We're brought to you, as always, by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, your premier dental implant destination. Nick Farrell here, along with Mountaineer football insider Sydney Cariel. Following West Virginia's loss to TCU here at Milan Puskar Stadium, Mountaineers still winless in Big 12 play. They fall to 2-6 overall with 4 games to go in their regular season. But Sid, I know that head coach Rich Rodriguez commented after the game, really, there aren't moral victories in Power Conference football, but there was some improvement out there today, for sure, for West Virginia. So we're going to break down the good and the bad from this game, but I think the overarching theme is if you're looking for positives, there are a lot more, or were a lot more tonight than there have been for the last several weeks. Yeah,
you watched the game and you always thought, you know what, the Mountaineers have a chance. They weren't out of it, whereas the last few conference games, not to make this negative, but in the fourth quarter, they were already out of it. In this game, they still had a chance.
Absolutely.
Literally up until the last few plays.
And so we'll get into that ending, which, by the way, was a little bit wacky. West Virginia falling in this game 23-17 to TCU. So let's start on offense, where the largest jump took place in terms of improvements. And I think the guy, and you'll probably agree, Sydney, that made the biggest leap forward was West Virginia's true freshman quarterback, Scotty Fox. He made his second consecutive start. Things did not go well against UCF. He became the first true freshman, to start in a game at quarterback for WVU since 1952. But after 3 or 4 possessions, he was promptly swapped out of the game and replaced by Cariel Wilkins. Wilkins not an option in this game. He was ruled out Friday night with an injury that he picked up against the Knights. So the story for Fox goes for 300-plus in his second career start, which is the first 300-yard performance by a Mountaineer quarterback this season, the first since Garrett Green surpassed 300 yards last year in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. Just a really solid mark for him. We didn't see as much of the mobility today from Fox. In fact, the box score has him with negative yardage because he was sacked a handful of times. But still, the passing was much, much better from West Virginia tonight.
I did notice, too, in the second half, he did have a brace on his knee, so that could have been something with his mobility, and maybe they didn't call as many quarterback run plays just to be cautious, because as we know, this quarterback room is banged up and there's no room to have another one go down.
Yeah, I mean, you have your emergency quarterback, Scott Keene, a guy who's never really repped a snap, as the third string guy tonight. So you lose Fox, if you lose Fox, then you have to go to Max Brown, a guy who also has been banged up all season, last played against Utah. The situation just isn't good for West Virginia, but the Mountaineers are making something out of it at this point, which is a positive sign. Cam Vaughn was the premier target for West Virginia. He was targeted a dozen times, only had 6 receptions, but six receptions. Some of them were difficult catches for 85 yards to lead West Virginia in both of those categories. Fox threw for 2 touchdowns in the game. Jeff Weimer had 1. He was 3 for 57 through the air. Grayson Barnes also a touchdown, his first TD since the game-tying score in the backyard brawl against Pitt. So really, when you look at the quarterbacks, when you look at the receiving core, definitely some positives tonight, Sid.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it felt like a little bit that Scotty was starting to feel some chemistry with the guys, too, because, like we said, his second start of the season didn't get much playing time before these last 2 games. So finally kind of building something there, and hopefully that they can build off of that chemistry from this game to the rest of the season. But I wanted to point out, after that first touchdown, I was walking behind the bench and Scotty came over to the offensive line and was just so jacked up and fired up with them. And, they were all, I think it was a big win, not only for Scotty, it being a touchdown for him, but for the offensive line. And then offensive line coach Jack Bignell also comes over and is just like, a lot of bad words were said, but in a good way, like, finally, blah, blah, just amped up for those guys too. So I think having a good game for the offensive line was a huge for this offense as a whole, because we know that there's been struggles there in the trenches. So, seeing that hopefully can snowball into more.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the passing game, no matter the quarterback, was never really going to get going for West Virginia until some things got figured out on the offensive line. And Coach Rodriguez told us on the Rich Rodriguez show this morning that they were going to make some changes there because, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing and expecting a different outcome. So they did make some changes, and there were some positives there as well.
Yeah, 2 new starters on the offensive line. So, hey, keep it rolling, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were not everything was perfect about the offense, though.
Yeah.
Run game was not a positive in this one. In fact, West Virginia rushed for fewer than 2 yards per carry. I think it was about 1.5 yards per carry, maybe even worse than that. That's not winning football. You had 5 turnovers on downs for WVU, and the first 4 drives of the game were 2 turnovers on downs and 2 punts. I think it was punt TOD, and the 2 punts were 3 and outs. So the issue continues for West Virginia of those early game 3 and outs in Coach Rodriguez's up-tempo offensive system. So, yeah, rushing for 41 yards, not going to get it done. And that slow start really put West Virginia behind, going down 10-0 in the first quarter and never led in the game.
Right, and if you remember, their first drive of the game was on 4th down. They just had to get a half a yard.
Yeah.
That's it, to keep the drive alive, and couldn't get that. That felt kind of a big-time momentum killer, and that was in the first few minutes of the game. So that was tough.
I think it was the first of the 2 TODs. They went for the tush push, right? And normally that's a guaranteed, we're going to get this half yard or 3/4 of a yard, and it didn't happen. Didn't happen.
That was, I was also kind of surprised they went for it on 4th down so early. Well, literally their first drive of the game, and it wasn't like they were in TCU's territory yet. So that was aggressive playing.
Yeah,
calling.
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. West Virginia 2 for 7 on 4th downs in this game. Coach Rodriguez was asked about going for it on 4th down afterward, and we'll listen to his full press conference here in a moment. But he said that's just what he does. He goes for it on 4th downs. So
kind of felt like you had to, right, in this game a little bit, like what is there to lose type thing. Just go for it.
I think that's been the mentality from West Virginia after the UCF game, right? That was a game against 2 teams that were previously winless in the Big 12. UCF, of course, no longer is after a 45-13 win last week. And Coach Rodriguez said, can't really play worse than we did last week. So why not, right? Like, why not be losing? Plus, you have the element of the atmosphere. I'm not really sure if those types of things weigh into decisions that coaches make, but you want the crowd to get into the game. It can help you. There was a great crowd tonight, a fun atmosphere, right? So those early situations where West Virginia stalled out just didn't help anything, really.
No. But then the defense came out and did.
They did
get the crowd right back into it. So good and bad.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, though, Sydney. And so I think let's transition into the defense. West Virginia on that side of the ball, better too, in a lot of different ways. One way, a sack against a Big 12 opponent.
Yeah.
How about that?
Oh my gosh.
Devin Grant with the first sack for West Virginia since the Pitt game when the Mountaineer defensive front annihilated Eli Holstein. So that's a positive.
Yeah.
No takeaways, but did force 4 punts and a turnover on downs that eventually led to West Virginia points in the form of a field goal. So that's another positive takeaway. And then a handful of guys who really stood out. Derek Carter, defensive back, led the team with 7 tackles, also had 2 pass breakups. There were a couple of guys with multiple PBUs. And you pointed out when we were chatting before jumping on the podcast here, Sid, that Carter had what seemed like a should-be interception.
And he knew it too, because while his teammates were celebrating with him, pass breakup, turnover, they got the ball back, all the things. He was not he was not celebrating as much, and he stayed on the field to be on special teams. But yeah, he was right on his fingertips too. He'll want that one back. That's for sure. One thing after the game today, Reed Carrico talked to the media. One thing that stood out to me, he said this week, Zach Alley really got them prepared for the game, but they were, instead of, let me pull it up so I don't get it wrong. Yeah. Instead of reacting, we were anticipating.
Okay.
So maybe whatever they worked on in practice, they were just more prepared, I guess, and we're anticipating where Josh Hoover was going to go with the ball, where the runners were going to make their cuts. So that might have been a key on the defense tonight.
That's a great point, Sid. I think the way that West Virginia swarmed to the ball, there were still moments where the tackling wasn't good enough. But West Virginia did get better pressure on the quarterback, knew that was going to be big against Josh Hoover, a guy who seems like a prototypical NFL QB or NFL draft pick. Yeah. This felt more like a defensive performance that resembled the Pitt game. It maybe wasn't as chaos-inducing, but it was definitely better than what we've seen.
I thought, too, they had more energy coming out from the jump. Like, the whole first half seemed like the Pitt game. More energy, more feeding off the crowd, getting into it. I don't know, little things, helping each other up, being good teammates in a way, that type of stuff. But then the second half, that's where, I don't want to say sloppy play, but kind of more missed tackles seemed to happen more, and kind of at key moments late in the game in the fourth quarter. There were more missed tackles than I think there were in the first half. So
yeah, and I think that you could make that argument too about TCU, right? I mean, West Virginia, the tempo maybe got to TCU a little bit late. West Virginia was able to score a fourth quarter touchdown to make it a ball game. So why don't we get into that wacky ending, right? Just to quickly clean something up here, the turning point in this game was West Virginia's slow start. I think you'll agree, Sid, falling behind 10-0 in the first 11 minutes of the game and never led in the contest. The turning point, of course, brought to you by our friends at First Green Mortgage. Your home is the heart of what we do. Visit them online at fgm.bank, equal housing lender. But late in the game, West Virginia definitely had a shot. The final 5 minutes were quite the roller coaster. It was a 13-point game with 5 to go after a TCU field goal. Defense holding steady there because 7-6 in that moment probably ends the game, but instead it's still a 2-score game, right?
The Horned Frogs did a great job milking the clock, I will say, using up that clock, because all of a sudden, there's 11 minutes left, I look, and there's only 6 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh, where did the time go? So they did a good job with clock management in that fourth quarter.
So it seemed like a methodical drive for TCU was going to put the game away, right? But West Virginia is able to get out of there with only conceding 3 points and then gets the ball back. 7-play drive, 75 yards, just over 90 seconds. All 7 of them pass plays that results in the Jeff Weimer touchdown. Fox goes 5 for 7 on what's probably the most efficient drive of his career, right? It was a really solid drive, and it gives West Virginia hope. 1 timeout left. Go for the onside kick with about 3 minutes left on the clock. And this is the first of 2 just absolutely bonkers plays that had one of them just swung in West Virginia's way. You get 1 bounce, you get 1 lucky break, and maybe West Virginia comes away and wins this game, or at least has a shot to do so.
I'll tell you what, that onside kick, watching it live, that was very close. And I know it's so hard to, once they call it on the field, to go back and overturn what they called, but man, that was close, because it bounced up, hit off a TCU player, and then you get the dog pile. And so West Virginia sideline definitely thought they had it for sure, but it's like I said, they can't go back and review it and to overturn that call because it's too hard.
Right. No, absolutely. And I thought it was well executed by WVU for sure. Like, clearly there was some confidence there. They didn't have to go for the onside kick. West Virginia still had a timeout plus the 2-minute timeout. Could have kicked it deep and tried to force a TCU punt. Instead went for the gamble. Didn't pay off. But fortunately, TCU had a penalty, procedural penalty on its first snap. So it goes to 1st and 15. Kind of pushes them back a little bit. And then you think, okay, maybe they can get a stop here, force a punt. They're going to have to go far. But let's see what happens here. On a critical 3rd down right before the 2-minute timeout, West Virginia, right there. Right there.
If you're
watching this edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast, if you're listening to it in your car, you're like, what are they talking about? No, right there at about the 25-yard line on the TCU sideline, WVU forces a fumble after a TCU player had already picked up a first down. Right? Game's over right there. Game's over.
Picked up the first down. I don't know who it was. Came from behind, punched it out.
Yeah, ball pops loose. Derek Carter in the vicinity. He might have been the guy that forced the fumble. Going to have to go back and double check that. Darian Lewis and Reed Carrico, along with Carter, all swarmed to the ball. There's like 3 Cole hats, 3 black hats, and 1 chrome TCU purple helmet, and the TCU player comes up with it, and the game's over.
If you can picture the scene, though, the way the ball bounced. Any other direction. Reed Carrico said this in the postgame, that he said he'll look back on that play a while. He said that play's going to sting because if that ball bounces 4 inches the other way, it's his. Mountaineers get the ball back. But the way it bounced right into the chest of that TCU wide receiver, and that was it. And there's nothing you can, that was tough. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and I think you heard the entire stadium, what was left of the crowd, kind of go, this is it. And then it wasn't. It just kind of deflated right as quickly as it appeared.
Just the 3 seconds the ball was out, you just felt the hope.
So certainly, Sid, I think West Virginia taking steps forward. It's not a victory, but it is a positive sign in terms of the development of some guys who could be key players for the future. But I also think that there's an element of this game that it just hurts from the standpoint of TCU let West Virginia hang around. TCU made a fair bit of mistakes, and WVU just could not capitalize on enough of those mistakes to win the game.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It was there. for the taking, really. And a couple of plays here and there would have made the difference, especially, like we said, our turning point, going down early 10-0, 2 scores. You just got to stop doing that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Sid. Okay, we promised we'd let you listen into Coach Rodriguez's post-game press conference. We're going to do that right now. He said he was pleased with more physical play, but there's still a long way to go for this team. We'll head into the podium, to the press conference, to listen to that podium sound after this quick word from Mountain State Orland Facial Surgery, your premier dental implant destination.
The reason I came to the practice was because I had had some teeth extracted and I wanted to get some replacements for it. We did a treatment plan to see how many implants they were going to place, and now I'm actually just waiting to get the crowns. The thing I liked the most about coming here, I was greeted with a smile, everything ran smooth, and that they were really going to do what I wanted them to do to make my smile a little better. They're some of the best doctors, and you will get good quality care.
Searching for a mortgage lender that's 100% local, personal, and focused on home loans? First Green Mortgage has been serving West Virginia for more than 35 years, and they can assist you with every step of your home ownership journey. Visit them in Bridgeport or Morgantown or at fgm.bank.
So, Rich, I know you're not into moral victories, but it felt like you played better, did you?
Well, hell yeah. I mean, you couldn't play much worse, you know. But, you know, played harder. That was good. Guys didn't quit. You know, probably going to be mad after we watched the film. Left a lot of stuff out there. Had chances to win the game, but you know, we got a lot of things to clean up. But you know, you true freshman quarterback with 10 new starters around him. I mean, I thought the kid acquitted himself pretty well, and defense played hard against a pretty veteran group.
What did you think of Scotty? It seemed like he developed a rhythm as he was going.
Yeah, he made some nice throws. There was some freshman stuff that was out there, but he's a true freshman, you know, and kid battled and competed, and you know, you ain't gonna win the ball. You ain't gonna win a game when you run for 40 yards. I mean, you kidding me? But there's also a lot of stuff that we can take from here and grow from.
Did you like that defense battle?
Yeah, I thought so, especially early in the game when the offense couldn't get a first down. The defense was hanging in there and battling. And, you know, they got some I thought we tackled better. He's a hard quarterback to sack because he gets rid of it. You know, we tried some pressure, and he gets rid of it pretty quick. He's an accurate veteran guy. So I don't know, dude. Was there any turnovers? Yeah, I mean, we had turnovers and downs because we can't get a yard. Many times we had 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and we got this much to get. That much. Can't get first down.
Cam Vaughn kind of got rolling in the second half there. Was it something TCU was doing in the first half that he couldn't really find the ball, or was it just play calling?
Not really. Just the other guys were open more, I guess. I mean, but he gets in the rhythm, gets pretty hot. You know, he's a talented guy, so trying to get to him. But you know, it's also some of the times the way they play in us.
Rich, on the succession of 4th down attempts, was that what you thought the game kind of would be going in, that you would plan on trying so many times on 4th down, or did the game just unfold that way that you just decided to?
No, I just go for it on 4th down a lot. And I'm going to go for it on 4th down a lot. I would expect us to get it more often. But I like to have a different play call, sure. When it doesn't work, I wish I'd have called something different. But if it's 4th and 1, I like to go for it.
Few different lineup changes. You had a couple new offensive
linemen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll see how they play after I watch the film. Mm-hmm. We didn't run the ball. But maybe we made to make a better play call, better run call or something. But, yeah, you can't. And some of it's the way they play us, you know, whatever. But you don't run for more than 40 yards, you ain't going to win.
I know the yards
in the
aren't
first
there.
quarter of 6 straight games. How detrimental is that?
What's that?
Slow starts, no points in the first quarter for 6 straight games. Slow offensive starts. How costly is that?
Well, they played 4 quarters. Yeah, it's not good. I mean, Is this like the obvious? Like, you don't score in the first quarter. Does that hurt you? Yeah. I mean, yeah. You even score in the second quarter. That hurt you? Yeah. What if you don't ever score in the third quarter? That hurt you? Yeah. Okay.
Aside from the yards not being there, how do you think the running backs played? Do you have any idea right now?
Well, I think they run hard. We're not very big. You know, it ain't their fault. You know, they're trying hard. Those guys, you know, when it's just where we're at right now. But you know, that's not. It's a whole combination of things. It's like moving people off the line, calling a run that maybe is a better run for that defense, and perimeter blocking, coming off. We've stressed all week out coming off the ball. Because I didn't think we were coming off the ball very good everywhere. I mean, wide receivers, tight ends, O-linemen. I didn't think we were coming off the ball very good in the last couple games. And so we stressed that, but I don't think it was better in the beginning of the game. It was better at times, though. And that's what was disappointing. I could see a glimmer of some runs there, and then we just didn't sustain it. So you figure that out.
Is something you can build on? I mean, just the positive.
I mean, you guys play. I mean, you can't play. I mean, in the last game it was embarrassing. You know, we were loafing and not hitting and wasn't physical. And, you know, I do think we were physical today. I think our defense was physical. They tackled physical. I thought, yeah, there's stuff there that was better, which it needed to be, and there's a whole lot more stuff. We'll get better, but I want to first of all I want to thank the crowd. We had a great crowd. I mean, it was a great atmosphere and with all the stuff going on. But they showed up. I mean, it was. I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't really thinking about it, but it was a tremendous crowd. And I know some left at the end because it looked kind of really pretty gloomy there, and we still had a chance at the end. But they were. Hats off to our Mountaineer fans because they showed up, and I really thought it was a great showing for the fans. I wish we'd have played better early and got them more excited, but you know, I hope they know our guys are trying. They are trying.
Rich, quarterbacks can get comfortable and settled in. Does that go for you as well? Do you give him more or try things once you see stuff that makes you more confident?
Well, yeah, as obviously as he gets more comfortable with experience, there'll be more things that that we can let do with him, if that makes sense. You know, like typically, we still have a very small menu with our quarterback situation. You know, this is crazy how it all unfolded. But as Scotty gets more experience, he'll get a bigger menu, and we're going to have to, the way teams are playing us. So. But again, we got to help him out by being able to run the ball better. You know, that's the first thing.
Did you do anything today
Pardon?
Did you do anything today that was maybe different than what you went into the game thinking with him? Did you expand or give him a longer menu during the game?
No, we have too much of a menu anyway. I always tell everybody wants to be the smartest coach in the world and have 20,000 fancy plays, and it ain't what you call, it's what you can execute. So, I'm going to go back again. I mean, some of these might have been, there's 7 or 8 of the same calls that got first down. So I have to always remind our coaches that it's what you can execute, not what you can call. So we got a big enough menu. I'm not worried about that.
That's head coach Rich Rodriguez following a 6-point loss to TCU. Mountaineers fall to 2-6 overall. They're still winless in Big 12 conference play, 0-5. And the sledding, Sid, has been tough. It's going to stay tough for this West Virginia team with 4 games left in the regular season. 2 of them at home, 2 of them on the road. And unfortunately for WVU, 3 of its upcoming opponents started the day in the top 5 in the Big 12 Conference. All of them still very much vying for one of the 2 slots in that championship game in Arlington.
Yeah. It's going to be tough coming up this Saturday on the road at Houston, and they look like a team that's rolling right now. People can argue that they haven't played anybody, but if you keep winning, who cares?
Well, you want to tell everybody what's happening right now at 10:30 Eastern Time?
No.
Miss Sun Devil?
On Saturday. The Cougars have a lead over Arizona State, 24-0.
Sydney is a Sun Devil, by the way, folks.
That is true, yes. But never say die, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Not until the clock hits triple zeros.
I know
Never
we've
know.
discussed this many times. It has been a recurring topic on this podcast. No one more positive than Sydney. That is a fact. When it comes to the Sun Devils, when it comes to the Mountaineers, when it comes to the 49ers, and when it comes to life. So I think...
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome to our TED Talk.
So I think for West Virginia, it is going to be difficult, but maybe you steal one of these games and it snowballs into something bigger, right? The Houston game on the road, that's going to be really tough. But similar to TCU, that maybe there was an element of this happening tonight. TCU beat its rival Baylor by 6 points in a thrilling game that was just kind of weird and wacky in Fort Worth. Come here, don't really play their best, right? And so, West Virginia is not a world beater by any means, and maybe Houston is going to whoop Arizona State, and Sydney's going to be upset about it. And maybe it's just not going to be there for the Cougars on November 1st.
They're going to use all their energy today.
Right. Yeah. Well,
next week.
I don't want to make it. I don't want to make it sound like hopium. The internet hopium and copium. But there is an element to that, right? With college athletes.
Also, like we've been alluding to, there is no moral victories, but there is a lot of positives. Way more positives that WVU can now take and on Monday turn around and use it to get better than they could have last week after the UCF game.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything good on the tape from UCF. So at least today, there is something that they can look at on Monday and say, okay, we found some strengths-ish.
Yep.
Some, 8 out of 10 situations that we can go with and move forward from it.
So we'll wrap up with this one last thought, Sydney. A lot of coaches have used this old adage time and again early in seasons that they thought that their teams would make a big jump from week 1 to week 2. You take training camp, you go out there week 1, you really don't know what you're going to have. Then you have a lot on film after a game, and you can make adjustments. You can change the way you do things. You can point things out to players so that they can learn things on tape. West Virginia had nothing on Scotty Fox, right? Really, before the UCF game. I know that he had appeared in games, but that was the most that he had played.
Yeah. You
go from 1 game of Scotty Fox to 2 games of Scotty Fox, and you have 300 yards for 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, right? So, that's pretty good. And so maybe week 2 to week 3, there is another jump for the offense. It could happen.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And this game played the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
UCF did step out and then got back in, but this was his game, played the whole time, and a couple of mistakes here and there. 2 snaps, fumbles, but he recovered them.
Right.
Which heads up plays by him. So, yeah, I think you're totally right with that going from now 2nd game to 3rd game, see what they can do.
All right, that's a wrap on this edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast. We'll be back next week to recap West Virginia's game at Houston. 2 weeks from now, Mountaineers return home to host Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and the Colorado Buffaloes. Should be a fun one at Milan Puskar Stadium. For now, though, that's a wrap on this edition. She's Sydney Cariel. I'm Nick Farrell signing off. This has been another episode of the Golden Blue Nation podcast presented by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, home of the Same Day Smile.